DNVR Avalanche Podcast. It's an off day for us. We got Megan, we got AJ, we got RyJo coming into you live. Am I just on the copium here when I try to tell you guys that there have been more comebacks this year than there have been for a long time in the NHL? Certainly multi-goal comebacks. You see that in the Avs game alone. Obviously, the blown 4-goal lead the other night, but they have multiple multi-goal comebacks of their own this year, including one from down 3 goals. Has something changed in the NHL that has made these multi-goal comebacks more prevalent? Is this just been a weird stretch of season so far? What is it about this year that has seen so many of these comebacks?
For one thing, I think we're seeing the effect of a 30-second team.
Sure.
So you have
lowering this total skill ceiling of the
league.
league.
You have 2 more goaltenders in the league that previously weren't, and you have depth guys in the league. You have 6 more guys that are, dispersed. That's obviously just one team, but when you spread them all out, you look at, I guess Fredrik Olofsson's an interesting name, because that guy couldn't get into the game last year consistently for the Dallas Stars. And, right now I'm closer to giving Fredrik Olofsson a multi-year contract extension.
He's closer to the Avs' 10th forward than their 14th.
Exactly. And you look at the difference between Fredrik Olofsson and Kiviranta.
Yep.
As guys coming from that same program who struggled in the same with the same thing. And so, and those are the guys that you put out there to not lose leads, to not have goals scored against them. And when you're protecting leads, you play those guys because they don't give them up.
Yep.
And so I think that you are seeing some of the talent disparity is it's just very spread out. I also think that the lack of a meaningful salary cap rise over the last few years has forced good teams, a la Colorado,
yep,
Vegas, et cetera, to lose talent off their rosters. And that talent is very spread now. And it feels like the parity right now in this year's NHL is significantly more than it has been in the last couple of years. That means no lead is safe because specialists are all over the place and teams just aren't, top to bottom, aren't nearly as good as I think we've seen in recent years.
I would point to parity in combination with something that's been true of the NHL season for a while, but the 82-game season is quite long, that on any given night, given the parity in the league, in part because of the lack of a meaningful rise in the salary cap, I think on any given night, either team has a decent chance of winning the game. It's not an impossible feat. It's, there really aren't too many David-Goliath matchups in today's NHL, just because on any given roster, there's NHL caliber talent, and then there are going to be depth players that might not previously have made an NHL roster. And I think that's true of most NHL teams across the league. And I think that's why you see the pesky persistence of an Arizona Coyotes team, which I think has really great pieces to build around. But I think they've been a team that surprised some people this year, and I think that they've really found a formula to channel that in their game, because I don't necessarily think that they were the significantly better team last night against the Avs. They were just very opportunistic.
Is part of this perhaps, at least from my own eyes, from what I watch in the league, the West is maybe the worst it's been in a decade plus? So you're seeing more of that, particularly surrounding the Avalanche and the teams you watch that are in direct competition with the Avalanche, as opposed to you look at the top of the East and it's a lot more of a bloodbath. There are a lot more good teams that you would expect to do a better job holding on to leads. That isn't to say teams like the Avs in Vegas, Dallas even aren't good teams, but there's a whole lot of teams stuck in the middle in the West. Does that lead to more, call it whatever you want, comeback sloppy hockey, whatever it is?
It's interesting as you're saying it. It makes me think of how I view the West and East differently, and it's new versus old. I view a lot of newness in the Western Conference between Seattle and Vegas as recently added expansion teams. but also a new head coach in Vancouver. I feel like when I look to the East, I consider them to be more well-oiled machines just in terms of the organization's history. And it's like the results that New York Rangers are having this season is to be expected. Even similarly for Boston, it's not even like Jim Montgomery's been their coach forever. It just feels like there's something that is a lot... It has an older origin in the East than in the West. Like the Vancouver results has also been a little bit of a surprise because I still feel like they're in the building stages in terms of identity. And it's not to say that they aren't for real. I just don't know that they're as for real as the results demonstrate. And I think they're going to be a problem in the near future. But I don't know that all those pieces are still quite there. Whereas the results for New York, I think, are because they're a pretty well-oiled machine, getting great special teams, great goaltending.
I think also out west, you have some of the biggest disappointments in the league reside out west, where the Edmonton Oilers,
Point.
the
Calgary too.
the Calgary Flames, and two other teams that I don't think any of us had really high expectations for, but they had higher expectations for themselves than what they've done this year in St. Louis and Minnesota. And
Minnesota for sure. Yeah,
that's kind of your middle class of your conference. And, Arizona goes from bottom feeder into that. But when you have more of those teams that are going the other direction, now Calgary is interesting because last year we were like, it's a coaching problem.
Yeah.
And this year you're also like,
it's not a coaching problem.
I still think it's a coaching problem because I think they got the wrong dude.
It's a Jonathan Huberdeau problem.
But you also have very highly paid players not getting it done.
Yeah.
And so I think that you do have an interesting out west. It's like it really is the Wild West because who's the best team out west right now? Do you have any confidence in any of them where you're like,
Nah.
if I have to make a Stanley Cup pick right now, I feel strongly about one of these teams?
If I absolutely had to, I'd pick Vegas, but
I'd
there's no
pick
confidence
Vegas.
behind it.
And Vegas can't keep a goaltender healthy.
Yep.
Logan Thompson has been awful over the last couple of weeks, and they have come back to earth so hard recently
Yep.
that you're like their panic is similar to Colorado panic.
Yep.
And those two teams are closer in the standings than you would think.
There's 3 points between them?
Yeah,
4
and
points?
it's their seasons have been so similar in the
it's weird.
yeah, and like the hot start, their hot start was longer than Colorado's, but the injuries hit them at goaltender again. But anyway, like you look at the West and you say maybe Vegas,
Yep.
but is Aiden Hill a serious answer? Well, he can't stay healthy all of a sudden,
Right.
so we have no idea how he even is in terms of playing. On the other teams, LA looks great. Everything that they do is great. Do you really trust Cam Talbot for 4 playoff rounds?
No.
The answer is no. Right now,
Just no.
right now, is there any team out west that you truly trust? The Avalanche have an Alexander Georgiev problem and a very obvious glaring hole in the middle of their forward lineup. The Winnipeg Jets, you should not be trusting.
You've seen that story before.
Exactly. And great forwards, great goaltender. Their defense has overperformed this year. Do you really trust it? Is their defense really any better than Dallas's? When you look at it?
And Dallas continues to be an overtime merchant team.
Yeah. 18 of 33 games this year, they've gone to overtime. 18!
It's too many.
They have more overtime games than regulation finishes. It's insane.
This is interesting because this does lead back to Megan's point. Who are the teams that are in the West with a little bit of history? Vegas, Dallas, Winnipeg, Colorado. A bunch of teams that more or less have kept their cores together, and you see them as the favorites out West.
Ooh. Sorry. Go ahead.
It's interesting, too, because
I'm wrong about Dallas.
some of these teams in the West have goaltending problems, too. Not all of them.
Oh, yeah.
I would say that Dallas and Winnipeg are in a pretty good position in that, right? Vegas, obviously, with health is a concern. Still a little bit of a question mark. That body of work with Aiden Hill even is still relatively untested outside of last year's miraculous playoff performance.
We haven't seen what average looks like for him yet.
And among the top teams in the league right now, the Avs are experiencing some of the most goals against,
For sure.
despite having such a great result. Like, I'm trying to pull myself outside of the Georgiev bubble for a minute. Is it a Georgiev problem in eyes around the league? Is it from our viewpoint because of what we expect for the Avs, or is it generally a league-wide problem, like from the league's view?
I mean, most contenders don't have a starter with a sub 900 save percentage,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I do think you see plenty of teams around the league giving up more goals than they would like. So I could pull an AJ and say it's both.
It looks bad on paper, but
Definitely.
it doesn't feel as bad as it looks on paper. And I'm trying to figure out, where's the lie? Have I overinflated what Georgiev can be because of last season's results? Because I'm not prepared to say there's a Georgiev problem, but I think that we are approaching January, and that's usually when goaltenders like even Kemper in his first year
Yep.
go on an upward swing. And coming out of the break, I think, is a tough period for goaltenders generally, especially Georgiev even last year. But how much time does Georgiev have to turn that around?
I think that's a great question that I wish I had the answer to. I think it's becoming more pressing by the day. Obviously, in the Avs circles, we've talked a lot about. 2 days ago, I think everyone you would have asked would have said the Avs' biggest problem is the 2 center spot. Now, today, we do find out Ross Colton goes out of the game because of a block shot to a nerve. It sounds like he'll be fine.
Yeah.
Not that big of a concern. But at a certain point, you're looking at the Avs goaltender spot as it's becoming the most important thing they have to fix. Now, the answer to that spot could simply just be Georgiev playing better. I'm not saying they have to go out and get another goaltender, but
Yeah, they're in a tough spot there.
I
Because
know.
I think that's what people woke up today feeling. It's, all right, they need to find another answer in net who isn't Alexander Georgiev.
Yeah,
And that feels hard to do because there's a lot of teams around the league who've had a goaltending problem from October on.
Yep.
It's not an easy fix.
Yeah, there is no Elias Lindholm for the
For
goaltender
goaltending.
position where it's like, oh yeah, just go get that guy. It's fine.
It's like John Gibson.
And you're like
End of
hoping
list.
he becomes what he was 3 years ago and is not the guy
he's on
been.
I think it's a 4-year downward trajectory.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of context and all that, but that's it. And that's a very expensive thing to go and do.
That's the other problem is the affordability of it all.
Yep.
The Avs intentionally constructed their roster with an affordable goalie tandem to allow to spend money in other places. And they're kind of locked into that unless they start making extreme changes that I don't think anybody would like to see.
Nope.
So I think there's a more reasonable conversation about living with what Georgiev is because the alternative doesn't really exist right now.
Yeah, with Georgiev, he just has to be better.
He does. I think he can be. We've
So,
seen
yeah.
better. He just has to be.
For whatever problems you have with Georgiev, I think it's clear to see he has the ability to play better than he has certainly over the last 25 games, whatever. And it's not, if he continues through January and still has a sub 900 save percentage, at that point, it's like the Avs have to make a decision of do we do something or do we kind of just throw this season away? Because you will not go far in the playoffs with poor goaltending.
Yeah.
That's just the reality.
And you never know. With a goaltender, you can always, I mean, you think that Vegas thought they were winning a Stanley Cup with Adin Hill last year? Like, you really never know. And the Avs, realistically, the Avs can't do much at that position till the offseason.
And that's a fair point. Look, Georgiev is as likely as anyone to have a hot 2 months starting in April, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And what would you prefer, right? Kemper's regular season or postseason? Would you prefer that maybe Georgiev has the strongest period of the year in the postseason?
yeah, of course. If at $8.99 now or whatever, it's like an $8.96 now, guarantees him to post a 920 or whatever in the playoffs, I would take it 10 times out of 10.
For the record, through the end of December in Kemper's year, he had a 907.
Yep. It was that January that really pulled him up.
Yeah, that's when he really, we've seen with the Avs multiple times over the last few years, January is kind of their
When you're
that switch
turning
goes
point.
on.
baseline for January is like 9-1-1.
911.
Yeah, they're gonna have
They
a
call goalie 9-1-1.
We need to call goalie 911.
their schedule's gonna be really hard this January.
is,
So
it
if
is.
they pull something like that off, it's gonna be big flexy.
There will be no more talk about are they contenders or not if they do it this
I mean,
January.
there still will be until they get a 2C.
Okay.
There just is, man.
Which is most realistic, I think,
Yeah.
in terms of how the Avs can address some concerns in this season.
I agree with that
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, there's guys available. There's always guys available that move every year. Are they as good as in other years? Like after Elias Lindholm, that list
It goes
it's
downhill pretty quick, yeah.
like Adam
Henrique?
Henrique again. We're doing this again. We did this last
It
year.
didn't feel real then. Doesn't feel real now.
Like we gonna restart the Claude Giroux conversation? You know, like what are we doing here? Like it's.
That feels cursed.
The list does dry up quickly, but guys always shake loose that, you know, when teams get closer to the deadline and they're like, all right, we're done with this.
Like Lars Eller. I'm just kidding, by the way.
Like Lars Eller.
You know what? Two interesting conversations here. One, not Lars Eller specifically, but let's say you have a good January. Let's say Ross Colton gets healthy. Is there a world where the Avs are targeting more of a 3C than a 2C if Ross Colton starts to take that job?
What I would ask you in response is, how much time do you trust Ross Colton? Like, how much time would it be? Because they're 35 games in. The deadline is what, like right around game like 60-ish this
Something
year?
like that, yeah.
So you don't have a ton of time between now and then.
Yeah.
Which is funny to say, you know, you got 25 games or whatever, but if Ross Colton's healthy and they keep him with Jonathan Drouin and Arturi Lehkonen comes back, and those three are your second line, and they produce, and they're all humming together right around a 50-point pace together. Are you fine
I'm
with
okay
that?
with that. I think I'm okay with that.
Okay, so that's enough time, but with 25 games, that's 25 games from today. I don't even know when Lecky's coming back. Let's say it's 15 games.
Yeah, I would say you give me 20 games. I would feel pretty confident in it.
Okay, so Lehkonen would need to come back in the next
10 days.
in order for you to be comfortable saying, this is our second line. Let's go get a 3C.
Call it the next 2 weeks. If it's 19 games, I'm not going to.
Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah. yeah.
I think it'd have to be like a JT Compher, Evan Rodriguez type that can flex up in the lineup.
I think that's fair.
But it's tough because we'd run into a similar conversation where, well, that's not a true 2C, and that's
Yeah.
what the Avs are in need of. And that might be something we have to live with 20 games from now, depending on what's even possible to be shown. I don't know what Arturi Lehkonen's timeline actually is. I think he's ahead of schedule, but I don't think he's that ahead of schedule.
Probably not.
What if you got another Ross Colton? Instead, because the reality here is that, one, Elias Lindholm is asking for $1 gajillion.
Yeah.
That it is very, very, very difficult to justify paying him. Very difficult. Just who he is in his career, his numbers, his role in Colorado, et cetera, et cetera, et
He's
cetera.
about to get the Kadri overpay deal.
Would he get? He's going to get bigger than that, and that's a huge problem. But like, would he be a great fit in Colorado? Yeah.
Yeah.
For
Is he
exactly
being
2
overrated
months.
a little bit just because he's the best player available right now that we would, you know, we think is going to be available? Because we're like, come on, Calgary, come on, come on. Yeah, right now that's why he's the name,
Yep.
and that's why all of a sudden everybody's like, just go get him, just go do whatever it takes, go get him. Would it be easier if Ross Colton does continue to show really well? Because as I tweeted it out last night, a 45 starting from game 11, 45-point pace. That's a little lower than you would want from a second line center. But that's also production next, and this is no offense, but that's production next to Miles Wood every night, a guy who should not be on the second line.
Yep.
If you have an Arturi Lehkonen and a Jonathan Drouin, who's on a 49-point pace starting in Game 11, which again, that's a little lower than you would really like on second line production.
But not that far off.
But you put them all together, and you say, all right, you've got a collection of 50-ish point guys here that you really, really like as a second line. Go and do that again on your third line. Go and get a Ross Colton type of guy on your third line instead of paying the exorbitant price to lose Elias Lindholm in the summer.
Right.
So we're gonna. I'm
Sorry.
loving this. No. I love
Sorry.
this conversation. I just keep having other thoughts and other branches that we can continue to talk about this. Before we do continue this conversation, though, we are brought to you by Bet365, and right now we actually have a cool offer. You guys can get a free DNVR shirt when you sign up over at Bet365 with code DNVR365. Put that code in for a new account. Deposit at least $10. Take a screenshot of your account with the $10 in it. Send it over to promo@thednvr.com, and we will send you a coupon code for the DNVR locker where you can get a free DNVR shirt or DNVR hat just for signing up with Bet365. And that's on top of all the bonuses like the $150 in bonus bets you get for signing up with that DNVR365 code over at Bet365. So it's free money to bet with, and it's a free shirt from DNVR. It's a great offer. Go get over with Bet365. We're just talking about Jonathan Drouin. He's pretty free money right now on Bet365. So maybe throw a bet down on him. Of course, when you do gamble with Bet365, you must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER today. And then when you get a little bit of extra cash, use your old friend Game Time to get your tickets to the Avs or the Nuggets or the Broncos or I don't know, what's playing in theaters around Colorado. I don't know. Hamilton?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, either way, they got you covered for whatever tickets you need all over the country. And when you sign up with them with code DNVR, you get $20 off your first purchase. So get with Game Time. They have the best prices on tickets anywhere. They guarantee it. If you find tickets cheaper somewhere else, they'll reimburse your account 110% of the price. Join the 15 million people using Game Time to get their tickets and go see Hamilton, I guess. Or the Avs, either way. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast, I did want to continue this conversation because I think the Ross Colton thing is interesting. If you can get him to whatever, that 50-point mark, pick a number that you're comfortable with that isn't quite 2C production.
He's on a 45 from Game 11.
Yep.
Stress this.
Yep.
From Game 11, he's on a 45-point pace next to Miles Wood. And that's like next to Miles Wood and Logan O'Connor and Jonathan Drouin and Tomas Tatar. And you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, it has not mattered who that third guy has been.
Well,
Miles Wood is on like a 29-point pace, so like Ross Colton is a much better offensive player here.
And my point is, I want to turbocharge that conversation. You get a healthy Arturi Lehkonen back. Maybe you throw him on the first line. Do you throw a Mikko Rantanen on that line that can help them drive offense a little bit? Val Nichushkin has proven this year as much as anything that he can do a decent amount of play driving. Do you throw him down there and help turbocharge that line a little bit that way? Does that make you feel a little bit more comfortable if it is a Ross Colton that they end up with in that 2C spot?
Yeah, give him one of the adults. Like,
Okay.
I want to, whether it be Nichushkin or Lehkonen, I really want one of those two guys next to Colton and Drouin because those two guys really need
Someone who can play defense?
Well, that extra, Miles Wood doesn't play defense.
I know.
But, that extra 200-foot, the hardworking, that's what Wood does bring to them every game. The speed and the physicality and the board work and all that stuff.
A little bit unhinged, but sure.
Yeah, but it's a better, more refined, more skilled version with either Nichushkin or Lehkonen. And that's why at the moment, you feel great about your top line.
Yep.
We know at any point, Arturi Lehkonen can go up there and also be good. Mm-hmm. We have seen it now for a while. So for me, I'm like, it's interchangeable.
Okay.
Whichever one of those guys you want to put next to Drouin and Colton, I want to start there and see how it goes. I don't love the idea of Rantanen down there with them, because then you start to get into
defensive side, and you're thinking,
yeah, and you start to get really uncomfortable with like where that yeah, it's, I guess the defensive side is where I'm just like,
don't love it. Sure,
I don't want to do that.
Because I'm still imagining Drouin there too, and I feel like it's not enough on the second line.
Yeah.
And so I'd say dealer's choice, and the dealer is Nathan MacKinnon. Who would he rather play alongside? And I think it's interchangeable. I think between Lehkonen and Nichushkin that he enjoys playing alongside each of these players, but I think depending on how things are going on that top line, it'll sort of make the decision for who is available to get some reps on the second line. And because of how well things have been going with Nichushkin and Rantanen, I don't necessarily think they need to detach from that. And so it puts Lehkonen on that second line for now until it doesn't work, until a change of scenery is needed. But I do think that some of what harmed MacKinnon earlier in the season was not having stability there. And I think that it's something he wants control over. This is just me reading between the lines in terms of what he has talked about works for him as a player and points to what has worked for him as a player in the past. And it's a little bit of consistency there. It can be broken apart as needed, but I think it needs his approval more than anything. And I still think that's a really good second line no matter how you slice it, like whether that be a Lehkonen or a Nichushkin. I do agree with AJ, though, that it needs to be one of those responsible players that's going to retrieve pucks, because I will say I think that's an area of Drouin's game that he's improved upon, but it isn't who he is as a player. And so I think they need somebody to sort of lead the way in that right on that line.
Okay. Take a trip to Fantasyland here with me for a minute. I understand that this is more of a meme of my own creation than something real. But I do think we've inched closer to this concept as something that was a month ago entirely out of the realm of possibility, and now something that they're not going to do, but maybe it's not impossible. Can Jonathan Drouin play center?
I don't feel good about this, Rudo.
I said take a trip to Fantasyland with me. I understand the real answer to this question is no.
I don't think he's got it in him.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'm not trusting that.
Okay.
As much as we joke about, look at him go winning these face-offs.
I know.
Spot situations.
I know. Montreal tried this for years and it didn't work out well. I get it. But if you're looking for creative solutions,
it's also like Montreal was a total disaster of continues to be an organization that struggles to get the most out of the players that they have on hand. You know, and so for Drouin, I would sooner try it than Mikko, because I hate it.
Okay.
I hate it. I just don't think he's any good at it, and at least Drouin he's got some experience failing at it before, so you know
he can fail at it again.
Yeah, exactly. Until the deadline. Honestly, you just get to the point where they have to do something. Whether that's get a true blue Elias Lindholm caliber 2C, a no-doubter, or they get a Ross Colton like, this guy's a really good 3C, he could be a lower-end 2C, you know, maybe, you know, whatever it is, it's very obvious they have to do something there. Because Ryan Johansson can't. This just can't continue.
After Freddie Olofsson, too, there's not a lot of depth in that position beyond it.
Yep.
And that feels mean to say about Ben Myers, but he's just not there yet.
We can like Ben Myers as much as we want. The Avs clearly don't want to do that thing.
There's a lack of trust.
Yep.
And my opinion on the matter doesn't matter. They need to have trust, and they don't. I think even Freddie Olofsson on the fourth line is risky, but I've liked what he's done there so far through this season, but they need a little bit more comfort past that down the middle.
I think that's totally fair.
And win a face-off.
Yeah,
I know.
If he could win a face-off, it would go a long way.
In his defense, I always joke about this, but in his defense, I think it's like 7 straight games where he's been at 50% or better.
That's gotten him back to 40% on the season.
Yeah, because he was before this stretch, he had more games below 40% than 50%.
Yeah.
And that's for a 4C, you can't be at 36%. You can't.
Yeah. So let's just stop tiptoeing around the reason we're trying to solve this. Ryan Johansson has gone from a guy who you didn't love but was finding a way to produce. 20 games into the season, he had 9 goals. Now he has 10 goals and 2 assists. The production just isn't there. He's completely lost in the Avalanche lineup as a sense of the Avs don't know what to do with him because they don't want to play him at 2C. He doesn't really fit in the bottom 6. Stylistically, he's not a fit at all. Is there a solution beyond try to get yourself out of it at this point?
Not for me. Not for my money. I mean, I have no issue. When they made the deal, we said it was a really low-end 2C option at the time, but it was completely free.
Yeah.
When you consider the cost and all that stuff, I still don't have a problem with it. They took a chance on it, and it didn't work. If you look at I added it up last night and said they took 6 chances on guys last summer. Between Drouin, Colton, Wood, Olofsson, Tatar, and Johansson. Tatar and Johansson are the ones that haven't
Pretty
worked.
good about 4 of them.
Yeah.
That's pretty good hit rate.
You
to be
feel fine
honest.
about 4 of those guys. 4 of those guys are probably in your playoff lineup.
Yep.
If fully healthy. The other one of them's already gone, and the other one has played his way playing in between Andrew Cogliano and Logan O'Connor,
Yep.
which should be your 4th line.
Yep.
When healthy. Like, that's your 4th line. So as long as they move on and do something, 'cause they have to. You can't just be like, oh, Ryan Johansson will take Frederick Olofsson's spot as your 4C. I don't care how many faceoffs the guy wins. Unless he's winning 90% of his faceoffs, and he's the greatest faceoff guy in the world, the rest of this is a disaster.
I look at who they're most committed to in terms of contract and term, and it could be worse too. Like Wood and Colton panning out so far the way that they have
Staring down 6 years of bad. Yeah.
is a huge relief. It's not great the position they're in with Johansson's contract, but it could be worse. As far as could it be movable? Is this something they can part ways with? Given the risks that they took, I think that it could be a lot worse. And like Adri said, I think it made a lot of sense at the time. But it's a similar position that we found ourselves in with Tomas Tatar. I think that Ryan Johansson could go and help an NHL lineup that has a different role available to him. But right now, the second line center position just isn't quite working for their needs. And that third line, no matter who is on it, needs to be driven by speed. It's what they do. And that's not his game. And I still think that he could benefit an NHL lineup somewhere. This isn't to say that he's washed and doesn't belong in the NHL. He just doesn't really make sense on a third or fourth line, especially the Avs' third or fourth line. The kinds of habits that they need from those 2 lines, I don't think are his strengths in his game. And there are still strengths. It's just not complementing what the Avs need from him. And there's not really much to do there differently. You can't ask him to be something that he's not and expect that to actually work either.
Yep.
I think that he's been a wonderful personality in the room too. I don't think this has been a total disaster. I think he was a cultural fit in that sense. It just stylistically isn't working, just like Tomas Tatar wasn't stylistically working. And they do need to make some decisions quickly, though, because they'll need to have an answer then for their bottom 6 if it's not him. And hopefully, too, they can sell other teams on him before his stock dips any lower, because the longer he plays in a system that doesn't complement who he is as a player, the worse it's going to look for him.
Yeah, I mean, your best hope at this point is, for me, I mean, it's...
Can you cap dump him for a third or something?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, he's a third, my God. I would take a 5th at this point. He's $4 million for this year and next.
It's a lot.
So I'm having the conversation. I'm calling up Chicago and like, hey, look, the Corey Perry thing didn't work out.
I meant the Avs are paying a third to cap dump him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, I just... You just have to do something.
Yeah.
Even if that's a future considerations, just give him to a team like Chicago that's like, look, we could use the veteran, and
Yep.
we don't care that he's not any good, and we need to get to the cap floor, and
You're not paying Corey Perry that money anymore, so
it's
give
the
it to
same exact
RyJo,
money,
yeah.
exactly. And so I'm, like that might be your best hope. San Jose also is on that list of like,
Sure.
hey baby, and then you would have to go and get somebody. Moving out
Of
Tatar,
course.
they're living with Kiviranta and McDermott in their lineup. You can't make an argument that they're thriving.
Moving out to Tar was reckon they'll replace this when he comes back.
Yeah. So yeah. But with RyJo, man, you just I'm a big picture guy. I'm the 35 games into the year, but there isn't one redeeming aspect of it that you can be like, hey, with Jonathan Drouin, you were watching him play and you were like, sure feels like he's outplaying some of this production. And eventually that production has started to come.
It's the opposite for RyJo, right?
Yeah.
15 games into the season, you're like, well, I guess he's scoring goals.
Yeah.
And then that dried up, and now there's nothing.
Yeah, he had like 7 points in the first 10 games or something.
Yep.
He's feasting on the power play.
Yep.
Yeah. And now it's all gone. I mean, he's not involved in anything. He's not creating. The one thing that you felt is like, oh, hey, he's still a pretty decent playmaker. His assist numbers are really high. He doesn't shoot a lot, but that's okay. But when he does, he's got a pretty good shot. He can still help you, but the mobility is a huge problem and should be a big red flag for both Adam Henrique and Sean Monahan if those are the directions you'd like to go in. Those guys are both better than Ryan Johansson now, but it's still like, what did we learn from this?
That's the next question. The last question I wanted to ask on this topic.
What did we learn from this? He's too slow. You can get away with somewhat of a stylistic misfit. Lars Eller wasn't bad in Colorado.
No.
He was just wildly miscast. And that will always color, a second round pick for a guy that ended up being a top 6 guy for you when you were like, oh, he should be your 4th C.
Yep.
Problems.
I just wanted to highlight Drouin for a second, too,
Yeah.
because he's found himself in a position similar to Tatar and Johansson at points earlier this year where he lacked stability and consistency in his line mates, but he battled through it. Desperate to find a way to separate, to prove that he belonged in the top 6. And that came at the expense of sometimes playing 3rd, 4th line minutes, getting scratched, and he fought through it and also adapted his game a little bit, too. I think that he has added things to his game that he didn't previously have coming into Colorado. Talk a little bit about the physicality. It's not jumping off the page at you, but it's added. And I think that's what's been different for Drouin so far through this point is responding to the adversity by just digging in really deep. And I think his versatility and his ability to adapt is why he has found some success and why other players haven't. Because it has been hard. They have not always had the red carpet rolled out for them, though Johansson more than the other two. And I think that Drouin has responded the best to it all.
One of the things that he's added that wasn't there at all, and now you see it, not every night, but I would say 3 out of every 5 games. He's got a little menace in him.
Yeah.
In the neutral zone and as like the attacking forechecking forward. You try and get a puck through him. He's good with that stick.
He's got a little sneakiness.
Yeah. You're not going to confuse him with Val Nichushkin and Arturi Lekin and Gabe Landeskog.
No.
That's not where we're going. But like, there's a little bit of menace there where you've seen him create some really good scoring chances because players take chances trying to get pucks through him, and he reads the play and walks into it and creates something out of it. And which is one reason why I want him with a forechecking adult. You put those guys under pressure, and you have that dude just kind of lurking around.
Yeah.
I think you could just see where the pieces fit nicely. I really wish he would shoot a little bit more, though. That 3v3 last night was really disappointing.
He was so unsure of himself.
Yeah.
And I hope that in time, the trust from coaching staff gives him more confidence in those situations. I understand why it wasn't there last night, but I hope it builds from here.
Yeah.
The thing is that in regulation, he has been pretty confident as of late.
Yeah.
You've seen him pretty comfortable with the puck, and then not at all in that 3-on-3.
Yeah. 3-on-3 is also a whole different animal.
Totally.
It is an 82 game problem, and then you never think about it in the postseason.
I do think it is interesting, the success of Jonathan Drouin and Ross Colton to whatever level you want to put it at. has at very least turned the Avalanche problem into we have a hole on our second line. Had it not been for the success of those two, the Avs would be saying our middle six is a gigantic hole.
Yeah. Your middle six also has like this weird. What's happening with Gabe Landeskog? Nikolai Kovalenko. There's like these two wild cards that live in the back of your brain when you talk about you need another forward, you need this, you need whatever. But it's like even if you temper expectations for Kovalenko and say he's going to be on our fourth line,
Right, Kiviranta replacement.
like he's going to be on our fourth line. Your fourth line is then probably Andrew Cogliano, Frederick Olofsson, and Nikolai Kovalenko.
Yep.
And you're like, okay.
Well, that sets you ultimately up for a third line that is whoever's playing 3C.
Yeah. Wood,
Miles
question mark,
Wood,
and Logan
LOC.
O'Connor.
Yeah.
And if Landeskog comes back, then this really gets out of hand.
Now you're
Landeskog's your
talking
2C.
Are you benching Andrew Cogliano at that point?
Yeah. Like, are you benching Frederick Olofsson after he gives you 36 games of exactly what you want
Yeah.
Right.
from a 4C? Sans face-offs.
Would be a nice problem to have right now for Colorado if they got to that. Yeah.
And so, like, when you're talking about deadline, when you're talking about what's wrong with this team and the holes, you can't just ignore the possibility that Gabe Landeskog could come back. You can't plan on it like they did last year because they
Right.
don't have any of that medical information. They don't have the player rehabbing. They don't have the player skating with the team during practice
Yep.
and being like, we have reason to think this is happening. So all of that, that you have two wild cards that kind of hang over you right now,
Yep.
but neither of those guys are centers. And so it all comes back to you need a center.
Yep.
And maybe, as Megan mentioned earlier, maybe you just go and get a guy that does a little bit of everything just in case. A Frederick Olofsson type. Because that was part of his appeal when they got him was he could
His
do it all.
versatility.
Plays all three forward positions. We'd prefer him here. But if you go and get another Frederick Olofsson instead of Kiviranta, who is very limited in so many ways, then you feel way better about this. But it's become obvious you have to have one more true blue, legit center.
Yep.
You just need one more guy who doesn't suck.
Yeah.
And it's that easy.
Just go get him, obviously.
And that's where it's like, how comfortable are you with price?
Yeah.
Because if you give up a first-round pick and Cal Ritchie and Sean Barons, that's extremely pricey for a team that doesn't have very many of those assets to give.
Yep.
We talked about this a lot on a recent show, so I'm not going to get into all of this. But it's not as easy as, oh well, Elias Lindholm is out there, so we're just gonna go give whatever it takes, and then you lose him in free agency and you make no more moves.
The reality of moves like that is anything less than a Stanley Cup becomes a disappointment
Right.
when you make moves like that.
Yep.
So
And I would love it, and I think that's exactly what they should do.
same.
My money, I'm doing it, and I'm worrying about it in the summer.
Okay.
Let's get wild.
Has-
Then give him $9 million.
Let's
Then
get
just
wild.
get rid of the defense. You don't even need one anymore. You have Kale and Taves. It's fine. The other four guys, who cares?
They can play 45 minutes a night.
Play Georgiev and Prosvetov at the same time.
I like it.
Who cares about Prosvetov not being able to move side to side? If you only tell him to stand on the left side, he's huge.
Two goalies in a trench coat.
I have revolutionized hockey. Everybody is welcome.
Human person in net. Okay. Has the universe miscast you in a car accident? If so, call Bacchus and Shanker at 222-2222 today. You can also get all of them at coloradolaw.net. Either way, if you have been injured in a situation that is not your fault, whether it's a car accident, whether it's at work, whether it's walking down the street.
No situation has ever been my fault, sir.
Okay. Be real with yourself. But Bacchus and Shanker will give you a free consultation, and if you have a case, they will take it on for nothing up front. They don't get paid until you get paid. So get with Bacchus and Shanker, give them a call, make sure you get what you deserve. They've won over $1 billion for their clients over the 25-plus years they've been doing this in Colorado. Bacchus and Shanker wins. And then, once you have got your Bacchus and Shanker money, celebrate with some Breck Brew. Get yourself 8 different kinds on tap down here at the DNVR bar. Get yourself whatever flavor you're looking for at your local liquor store. They're in all 50 United States. They have dozens of flavors to choose from. Whatever it is, they've got a beer that you like. So go check them out. Go to breckbrew.com. Use the online beer locator. Check out their merch. They have some pretty cool stuff over there, too. Breck Brew is the official beer of DNVR, so we do love them over here. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. This conversation kind of went off the rails, but I'm glad we had it. I thought it was a good conversation.
No, it was fun.
My bad.
No, it's good. We do have another pretty cool conversation that is related to the Avs a little bit. We've been telling you about it. We have a little bit of not a preview. It's just straight up part of what we've released. But we want to show you guys part of our Pierre Lacroix documentary right here on the podcast. And when you love it and enjoy it, go watch all the rest of the stuff that we released about his Hall of Fame induction. So let's see the Pierre Lacroix footage.
Day 2 started back at Scotiabank Arena, which was filled with hockey legends lacing up their skates to play in the Hall of Fame Legends Classic.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Nice big warm round of applause for all these goal scorers and playmakers. The franchise made the playoffs every single season. They won their division 9 times and made the conference finals an amazing 6 times. The team lifted Lord Stanley's mug on 2 occasions with the man from Montreal at the helm. On his behalf is his wonderful wife, Coco Lacroix. Please welcome Coco.
It was then time for our second round of interviews.
Do you wear it? See, I wear it facing me.
This is what I don't know.
That's what I want to see it. I want to see it.
Okay, I did the
I want to see it.
Today that included Pierre Turgeon and beloved wife Coco Lacroix, Denny Savard, Charlotte Graham, and Claudia Landry. Each revealed something new about Pierre, the person, not just the Hockey Hall of Fame GM.
To him, it's all about relationships, and it starts there, and you build from that.
He was unique, you know. I mean, he cared about the families, and that was, you know, that's a big important thing. And I think today, you know, it's kind of gone that direction.
It was a priority for him, and he laid the plan for it, and he implemented it, and he was extraordinary at doing all of that to make everybody feel part of it. We just created a real bond, and he trusted me, I trusted him.
He always wanted to fix, if there's something wrong, he always wanted to be the fixer. Had to make sure that everybody around him was always okay. There was one time actually, my husband had a heart attack about, 5 years ago or so. We're in the hospital and we don't know what the heck's going on. And all of a sudden the cardiologist walks in and he goes, "Are you Claudia?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Claudia." He goes, "Your Uncle Pierre sent me here to see if you guys are doing okay, if you need anything." And I was like, "What? Like, how?" Well, of course he knew the cardiologist, whatever. So he made sure that my husband was taken care of and just stuff like that. I got so many stories just like that.
You know, he mentored us at everything. He was really a father and a brother, if you want to put it that way. And he did, hug you when you needed. Told you when you're wrong. So, he just had that presence that was so powerful. Well, he meant everything for us. He went out of his way many, many times to help all of us. And what's amazing is all the people that are here for him. I'm not shocked. He deserves it.
When I came here on Thursday, coming out of the car, and I'm the first one who walked, and then I turned my head and I see my husband right there. I was like, oh my God, he's talking to me. Welcome, this is it. So this weekend, that thing hits me the first, and I realized that, oh my God, you did something very important. This is something that he wanted to have so bad. It's a blessing. It's a blessing, and I'm so happy that finally he's there.
You should be proud of all this,
I
very,
should.
very proud, yeah. You guys did an incredible job. Now,
it's very difficult.
Yeah, for sure, and I think you have, it's not only one, I have my share too, it's two. And when you do this as a couple, and you guys did an incredible job to guide a lot of people and to their life, and we're very thankful for this. And I'm like Denis Savard, and you could go on, and it's just, and it's incredible, and it made a difference to us. It really did.
The storytelling continued later that night at the Lacroix family dinner.
Look, we wanted to take this opportunity to just open the mic, tell a few stories, have a few laughs, kind of reminisce. I want to start it, actually, and just raise a toast to Pierre, who meant so much to me, which he meant so much to all of you. But I want to make sure that I cheer the guy that helped me have a career. So here's to Pierre Lacroix, my friend.
He was a winner, he loved to win, and that's what he did for every one of us.
That's all he cared about, his friends, his family, and I gotta tell you, I miss that guy every single day.
To get to know him on another level with his family and Max and his family and his kids and all that stuff has just been, and I miss him so much. We should have been here for this induction. So with that, Coco, Lacroix family, thank you so much for having us tonight. It was all amazing and fun, and he was all about family.
I think he was he was a winner.
We had to relocate a professional sports franchise and all their families and all their equipment, everything that goes with it, in a record amount of time.
Just telling the world how proud I am of my best friend, and I thank you all for this moment. Modzi Keshtem, Papa. Love you.
That was one part of our documentary on Pierre Lacroix's Hall of Fame induction. We have 2 other full parts here on this YouTube channel and a bunch of those full interviews that you saw parts of in that. So please,
Whole
after
playlist.
this show, it's just a play. You can just play the whole playlist. You'll see it all. Again, huge props to Megan. It's some of the best content we've ever made at the DNVR. So thank you for getting all that together and going out. I'm sure it was an amazing event.
It was all hands on deck because there were Avs games that I missed to be in Toronto, and some of those were tough Avs games, the Seattle and the St. Louis loss. So you guys had to work through the coverage of that while we were doing those
Some
cool
say we're
things
still
in
working through
Toronto.
it.
Yeah, some say we're still working through it. And RG put a lot of effort into the production of the video for it. And I'm personally so proud of even the standalone interviews that didn't make the cut. So I'd encourage everyone to watch as much of it as you have time for. I know it's a lot, but one of my favorites was the Pierre Turgeon and Coco Lacroix interview that they do together because of how adorable it is and also how comfortable both people were. I thought Pierre Turgeon was even more comfortable in that setting than he was in his own Hall of Fame speech, and that's one reason I think it's really worthwhile. And then the other is Charlie Lyons, now a Hollywood executive, but part of the management group that brought the Nordiques to Colorado. And he's a character and has really interesting insights to how Pierre worked as a GM and as a person, some really funny stories. So that was another one that I think adds a unique perspective that I would also encourage you guys to watch.
Such a cool perspective, too, from Charlie Lyons as the guy that, like a forgotten guy in Avalanche history. Because the KSE's been at the helm for so long now. Yeah. But you forget, a couple of years there was a different ownership group that led by him. And it's just a cool perspective when you guys had him on the list of people that you were going to talk to. I was like,
It was a big get. We were kind of humbled by it. So really appreciative, too, that he took the time to talk to us.
Yep. And too, of course, shout out to Eric for giving us so much of that access and making us part of such a cool event.
Yeah.
Super awesome from him to allow us in like that.
Yeah.
Is this the solution? Does the Avs front office have to channel a little Pierre Lacroix to solve some of these problems?
It
this
really
year?
is timely, all of this, because the thing, for a bunch of reasons last year, CMAC and Sakic played it safe.
Yep.
There were a lot of reasons that they did that. A lot of justifiable reasons that they did that people try and pretend don't exist when they talk about it. Like, they didn't go do anything. And it's not realistic. And this year they tried something. It didn't work with RyJo. Now you got to respond. You've got to do something. You have a really good hockey team.
Don't squander it.
Yeah, you're sitting first place in your division right now. By points, you're third in points percentage, and it's all very clustered. Whatever, but
wait 2 weeks, it'll be different.
You're first place in your division right now, and you haven't felt like you've gotten quality goaltending out of your starter yet.
Yep.
And as soon as you get that, because I have full faith that Georgiev will give it to you eventually. You hope it's not like the last 10 games of the season. But, hey, at least you'd have a rhythm. Anyway, channel a little bit of the Pierre and go do something bold. I know it's a different world with ELCs and draft picks being significantly more valuable in a cap era than they were in an uncapped era. But as Eric has mentioned multiple times, they had an internal cap that they had to live by back then. They did have constraints. He talked about that was the entire reason behind the Chris Drury deal. So, and that did not curtail the boldness of Pierre Lacroix.
True.
CMAC, it's the next couple of months will be, I think, are by far his biggest test as the guy in the chair.
Yep.
And hopefully, friend of the show. Hopefully we get him to come back.
Talk about how it all goes
and
down.
talk about the cool thing that he just did.
Yeah, exactly. He can come in and talk all about Elias Lindholm and how they're going to lose him in the offseason. So after they win another Stanley Cup.
AJ, I thought of you in the Patrick Watt interview. He talks about how before the Ray Bourque trade, the team needed something different. and that they couldn't continue to be a country club. And I think about that and all the conversations we had about different cultures, different locker room environments, that I think there's a bit of a culture shock to some players coming to Colorado. And I'm not even just talking about new additions, but even players returning this year that I have to imagine there's a shock to the system. And the thing that they needed to sort of reinvigorate the team that wasn't even doing badly came in the form of Ray Bourque. But it was obviously much bigger than just a singular player. It was an attitude too. And I don't think the Avs are playing like a country club. But I do think that they need to shed any remnants of country club that are in that locker room. And that does come at the expense of being a little bit bold.
And one of the aspects of the Ray Bourque thing that would apply to the Avs doing something bolder at this deadline is, what does it tell the guys in that room? They mean business.
Yep.
Now it's on us. We've got no excuses left. We can look around this locker room and say, oh, well, this guy or that guy or whatever. They go and do something bold, and they go and get an Elias Lindholm for the very expensive price that it will cost. That tells them, you have to win the Stanley Cup now. You have to do it now.
Yep.
Yeah, will that work? That'll do. That's what Patrick said about Ray Bourque, and there's no excuses past that point.
I don't know that they will be able to lose in Game 7 of the Western Conference Final and then convince Elias Lindholm to come back on a one-year deal, though.
Yeah, that one might be tough.
Might be a tougher sell, but it's a big-time bolt of lightning that you throw into your locker room to say, all right, you have everything that you need. We believe in this group. We gave you the one thing that we felt like you guys have been missing. We're 50 games into this. You've been missing it. Now you have it. No excuses. Go do it.
Bolt of lightning. Interesting. I like it.
Stamkos to the Avs.
I was going to say bolt of lightning, and all of us are like, Stamkos.
Said it.
Not a center anymore.
Not really, no. On that note, we are brought to you by MSU Denver. Make sure you're going and getting yourself educated, whether you're going to college for the first time or going back to college the way I did it at MSU. Head on over to msudenver.edu to see all of your options. Over 90 different major courses. You can take classes online or in person or a mix of both, whatever you want to do. They even have paths where you can kind of select your own classes to take to find your way to a major. It's awesome school. I know Tiff went there too. We both enjoyed our time there quite a bit. Plus, it's right across the street from Ball Arena. So you can finish classes and then go catch an Avs game. Super easy.
Go to the country club.
Yeah. Hit them up, though. Go to msudenver.edu today and get yourself all registered up for classes as the big engine drives by.
That guy meant business.
And then get yourself some Shady Rays so you can drive on down to MSU Denver or take the bus. I don't judge. I know either way, it can get very, very sunny on Colfax when you're driving down that road. So Shady Rays, make sure you got them. Make sure you're not going blind when you're going down the street. Use code DNVR when you sign up, and you excuse me, you buy 2 pairs of sunglasses or more, you get 50% off your total purchase. They've been rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people. They'll replace them no matter what in the first 30 days. Whatever goes on with your sunglasses, they got you covered. So check them out at shadyrays.com. Get yours today. That's kind of all I have for today's show. Anything else you guys wanted to touch on? Anything else you guys wanted to talk about that I missed?
Glad that I derailed us.
Do we care about this Russia thing?
I mean, you want to bring it up real quick?
Yeah, I would like to keep it brief, but sure.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of thoughts on it.
So it was reported that Russia may start to implement a rule where they don't want their younger players to come over to North America for the first 5 years of their professional career.
So 5 years as KHL players.
Yeah. So that would be, assuming they start at 18, they would not come over to North America until they're 23 years old.
When you know that the way the KHL is, they would manipulate it and they would stop
the big names.
Well, they'd be like, okay, the Matvei Michkovs, we're not going to let him play in the KHL until he's 20.
Yep. And now he has to be here until he's 25.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've already found the way that they're going to abuse it, and I don't feel good about it. So,
well, and it's going to have immediate repercussions. Teams are going to be less inclined to draft Russian players, and it's going to harm the status and the earning potential of Russian players, and that, I think, hurts national sense of pride.
Yep.
it also just greatly limits. Like, there are guys that want to come to the NHL and prove themselves against the best of the best.
Yep.
100%.
And we've seen not many, but some Russian players have come over and played in
AHL and things like
well,
that.
in like, I mean, like, we're
Even,
like American juniors,
sure.
you know, to try to get through, you know, oh, I'm going to go play college hockey instead, or I'm going to go play, you know, the CHL or whatever it is.
not
like,
a Russian, but the Buyalski path, essentially.
Yeah. Sampo Ranta.
Sure.
Another guy, but yeah.
But same thing, yeah.
Yeah, same concept. I guess Andrei Svechnikov also.
True.
He played in the USHL. That's the league I was trying to think of. That kind of path. I wonder if that would inspire more guys to be like, I think I'm going to be, I don't want to wait till I'm 23 or 24, 25. Because then the guy could always go, if it doesn't work at 23, he could always just go back to the KHL and be like, all right.
I'm sure they'd welcome.
So it's as a thing that hasn't happened yet.
Right. For context,
all right.
This is one report by one guy on Twitter. Yeah. So I'm sure the guy's credible. I'm not trying to say anything like that, but take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if they actually do that, because you can't use a top 20 pick on a Russian player at that point.
No.
I don't care how good he is. If you're rebuilding and you know that you're waiting 5 years,
who knows what your team even looks like?
You're probably not even the GM of that team anymore, and that's what you're going to do?
Yeah. Tough look.
So, really tough spot to be.
It wouldn't be the first players that the NHL has smuggled out of Russia, but
That's what I'm wondering, if there's just more defects.
Yeah. So
way more crazy stories about dudes slipping out of hotel rooms and into the back of cars and fake passports and shit, you know, all kinds of crazy things that some of the guys did to get from the Eastern Bloc into North America back in the day.
Yep. There's some crazy stories out there, man.
Yeah.
It's wild. Anyway, we're going to wrap up our show. We appreciate all of y'all hanging out with us. Again, go watch the Pierre Lacroix stuff. It's super good. We appreciate y'all. We're back tomorrow with pregame, postgame. I think we have a watch-along. I don't know. The Nuggets might play. 50-50. We'll see if the watch-along's there. Join us for the other stuff, though. We appreciate you. We'll talk to you on the next one.
We all silly like the mayor.